Hey everybody, I'm Tom Simmons from HRP Associates, and if you, like our client, are a chemical manufacturer here or a similar plant, from time to time you're going to end up with substances or drums where you don't know where they came from. But you're still going to need to sample those drums and find out what those substances are before you can move those drums or really do anything with those substances at all. And in this video today, we're going to show you how to sample for those unknown substances. To show you how to do that, I'm going to toss it over to my colleague at HRP, Michael Steinberg. Here's Michael now.
The first thing we need to do is determine if the waste displays any characteristics of hazardous waste. In other words, we need to determine if the waste is ignitable, if the waste is corrosive, if the waste is reactive, or if the waste is toxic. For toxicity, we need to do what we call a T-clip or TCLP test. For that, we need to contact our laboratory. The laboratory will give us instructions on the amount of material that we need to collect from the container and any other shipping information that we need for that particular test that needs to be completed. When taking the sample, ensure you're wearing your proper PPE in accordance with your job hazard analysis. We're going to use a tool for sampling, such as a kaliwasa. Ensure the container is labeled properly with the words pending chemical analysis. Because this is a semi-solid material, which may not be completely mixed, we're going to use a stirrer to mix the material, and then we're going to use a dipper to get a complete homogeneous sample. Now we're going to fill our sampling bottle with the material. Because we do not know the hazards of the material, we want to wipe our jar and any materials that we generate, including the residue that we clean from our sampling apparatus, we want to put back in the original container that contains the material. We don't want to release any of this to the environment. When we are done sampling, we want to ensure that our sampling container is labeled, our bottle is labeled, and both containers are completely closed. We're going to ensure our sample bottle is labeled properly according to laboratory specifications, and we're going to fill out our chain of custody. Now we will be filling out the chain of custody for the unknown waste that was collected earlier. Company name, ABC Corporation. This is an example chain of custody as we are protecting our client's business confidentiality. The address, the report to, so this is the person that we want the results to be reported to. A copy of the report, we want to go to a second person. Project number for this, if you have a project number that you're assigning this specific chain of custody to. This is a phone and email address for the person the report will be sent to. The person who actually collected the sample. And I'm that person, so I'm gonna write my name and my signature here. The method for sample disposal, we don't want the sample back, so we're going to let the lab dispose of that. So we'll check that box. Billing information, here I'm just going to put accounts payable. Email to, this is the same email as I put in the other box. It's just a second place I can put the email. So site collection, info, address, it's the same address that the information is going to go back to. And just write same there. State, city, and this is in the Eastern time zone, so I'll circle that box. Site facility ID, this just could be a unique ID if it may or may not be applicable. purchase order number if you've issued a purchase order for this, for the lab to bill. If there's a quote number, here I'm going to put not applicable. Turnaround date required, so there may be a rush on this sample. In this case, there's no rush, so I'm going to circle 5-day. This is not in accordance with any compliance monitoring. This is a sample that's being analyzed to determine the hazards associated with the particular chemical that's in the unknown drum, so I will check no. This has to do with drinking water, so this is not applicable. This box also DW location code drinking water, so it's not a drinking water sample, so not applicable. Was it immediately packed on ice? In this case, yes, it was. This may or may not be required. Again, prior to taking the sample, it's important to contact the laboratory to make that determination if that's a requirement. Field filtered, if applicable. There was no applicability there. We didn't need to filter it prior to taking the sample. So now we're going to fill out this section specifically regarding the sample, when it was collected, and the type of collection method. So here it says customer sample ID. So we need to give this sample a specific identification. This is where I've seen facilities in the past maybe getting into some trouble because they can't associate the chain of custody with the particular sample. It's important to mark the container with a specific identification and then match that identification on the chain of custody so that it can be cross-referenced when the results are received. In this case, we're going to describe that container, because there was only one, as a 55-gallon blue poly drum. Matrix, this has to do with these codes here. It's not a drinking water sample, it's not a groundwater sample, it's not a wastewater sample, it's not a product sample, it's not a soil or solid, oil, wipe, air, tissue, bio, vapor. So we're going to check other here because it's a RCRA sample. It was a grab sample, so we'll check that box. The date that the sample was taken, so we'll put today's date. The time the sample was taken, so it was taken at 10:07 in the morning. And it wasn't a composite, so we're not going to fill out these boxes here. There's the one sample bottle, so we're going to put one there. In this box, it's the type of analysis that we want to check. So this is a TCLP test for the toxicity, so we'll put TCLP here, and we'll put a check mark in that box. Under customer remarks, we'll put TCLP, and this is under the RCRA. We want to know if it's a hazardous waste, so we're putting RCRA there. This section down here is for when it actually ships out, so this is the important chain of custody information. So when I turn this sample over to someone else, or if someone else at our facility turns this over to the person who's transporting it to the laboratory, for example, that's where this line will get filled out. So we're going to leave that blank for the time being. And also, we know that this does not need a preservation. And then we're going to tell the laboratory if this chemical sample is preserved or not. There's the types of preserved. In this case, it's unpreserved, so we're going to put a U in this box. And as it states here, all the shaded areas are for the laboratory use only, so we will leave the shaded areas as they are. Again, as when the sample ships, we will complete this bottom section, and then this is good to go. And lastly, it's a good practice to make a copy of this chain of custody, and when the final report is sent back to the facility with the original copy of the chain of custody signed by the laboratory, you can attach the original to the copy and the report, and you'll have all that together in one file. All right, just a reminder, if you have any questions about the sampling program, please contact the laboratory, and they should be able to give you details as to how to fill out the chain of custody and take the sample. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, please subscribe, hit the bell, and we'll see you in the next video.